I know when I was looking for my first house, I had no idea where to start. Was I supposed to find a realtor first? Was I supposed to get pre-approved first? If so, how do I find a lender? Am I supposed to look for the house first? But I don't know how much house I can buy. Like, I had no idea what to do first. And I think a lot of people struggle with this because I find people going out of order all the time. So this video is going to tell you the 9 steps of the home buying process in the order that I recommend. Let's start right now. Hi, I'm Allesen Cann with the Dean Aguilar Group of Big Block Realty here in San Diego, California. So let's get started on this journey. I personally think the first step should be finding a realtor. It could be one that you see on YouTube and fall in love with. Or you could get a referral from a friend or family member who's used somebody that they really liked in the past. My recommendation, no matter how you find the person, is to check their reviews online, to ask how many houses they've sold total, because the more homes they've sold, the better they're going to be, because we learn something with every single transaction. Are they full or part-time? Make sure that they are a full-time agent. This job is no joke, and anybody who does it part-time, there's just no way they're going to know as much as they need to be a really great agent for you. Do they answer their phone or at least call you back really quickly? This seems like a no-brainer, but it's a really important one. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to refer people to an agent who never called me back. And when you are working on finding a realtor, the number one most important thing you can do for your entire home buying process is to have what's called a buyer consultation. In a buyer consultation, you sit down with a realtor who you are essentially interviewing. And honestly, they're interviewing you as well. They want to know what you're looking for, what your timeline is, about you, about your lifestyle, and then they're going to go through the entire home buying process and talk about the strategies that you need to know in order to be successful in getting a home. Every market's different, so every market's going to have different strategies, and an agent who is actively selling properties will know exactly how to address this. But the only way you are going to know that is if you have a buyer consultation and hear how they explain things and make sure that you guys are on the same wavelength and that you think that they are going to be able to explain things to you well throughout the home buying process. And then finally, is this agent somebody you actually want to spend time with? Because you might be spending a bunch of time with them. I don't actually take buyers in my car anymore, thank you, COVID, but we still go out and see 5-6 houses at a time and spend 3-4 hours together. We talk pretty much every day when we're really actively looking and putting in offers and stuff like that. So it's very important to have your agent be somebody that you actually like. Step number 2 in the process is to get a pre-approval. And the reason I put this as step 2 is that the agent you work with will have preferred lenders, and they should have a bunch of them. So if you want to actually talk to different ones and shop around and whatever, you can do that. But I recommend doing it through the lenders that your agent is used to working with. Why is that? Think about if you've ever had to do a group project or worked with people at work who you work with all the time. Things get quicker and easier the better you know people. Things move more smoothly, fewer hiccups, all of that, because they're a team. So we partner with lenders who we get to know and who we know exactly how they're going to get you to the finish line of buying a house, and we know how to communicate with them, and they're good lenders. There's a reason we've picked them, because they work well. So that's why I recommend that. If you go and find somebody else yourself, just know that the only times I've ever had problems with transactions was when somebody went and found their own lender. So that's my first piece of advice on that. The next thing is make sure you actually do the approval. So actually apply. Don't worry about the credit pull. It barely impacts your credit score. And if you're actively shopping for houses, then it's probably barely going to even apply at all, no matter what. Part of the loan approval process is them making sure that nothing has changed with your credit during the time from the time you wrote the offer to closing. So don't go buying anything big that's going to change your credit. Don't go opening new credit cards. Don't go paying off credit cards. Don't do anything that your lender has not approved. If you do have car trouble or something and need to spend a bunch of money, talk to your lender first. Understand how that's going to affect things before you actually spend the money. Consider them your parent for the time being that you are getting through the loan process until that loan is closed. Consider getting a full pre-underwriting. So this is where the lender actually puts you through the entire underwriting process, gathers all of your documents, and has that done ahead of time. That way there's no surprises, at least with you and your credit and your financial situation during the whole process. It makes you appear as a much stronger buyer in a strong seller's market. And of course, the number one most important thing to do with your lender is to make sure that you understand your budget. So chances are they're going to ask you, how much do you want to get approved for? Don't do that. Tell them, I want this monthly payment max. This is what I'm comfortable with. And have them back into it. Make sure that they include everything in that payment, which includes HOA fees, which are often missed. And I have people go to like the big banks or the internet lenders or whatever who don't talk to them first. And they give them this like lovely low payment, but it's missing key things like an HOA payment if they're going to get a condo. If you're going to get a condo, you will have an HOA payment, so factor it in ahead of time. Another thing that's super important to talk to your lender about is closing costs. Make sure you understand what that total closing cost amount will likely be so that you can budget that in. If you have $50,000 saved for your down payment and that's all you have, and then you find out the closing costs are going to be $15,000 of that, now your down payment's lower, that might change the budget for the house, so figure that all out ahead of time. The one thing I actually recommend not to worry about at the beginning is the rate. Rates change every single day, so you can ask the lender what the rate is when you get pre-approved, and it's going to mean nothing by the time you actually lock in a rate once you're in escrow. So don't worry about that right now. You will find out your rate later. Most everyone's going to have something similar. If it is a lower rate, they're probably charging you more at closing, so it's more cash out of your pocket because everyone starts with the same base rate. The next step is the one that everyone always wants to jump to, and that's to find a house. So you need to figure out, do you want a condo? Do you want a townhouse? Do you want a single family home? This may depend on budget, but think about like how you want to use the home. You know, do you have to have an outdoors? Do you have to have that guest room? This is actually one that I probably go against most people, but I think you could probably pay for a hotel or an Airbnb nearby a lot more cheaply than buying an extra bedroom that barely gets used. I know when I bought my first house, I bought a bedroom that didn't get used and I wondered why I had done that. Determine what your must-haves are and your like-to-haves are. So when I bought my first house, for example, my must-have was I wanted a single-story home. I don't like stairs. I ended up with a house where the master bedroom was on the second floor and there was laundry in a scary basement. And I also don't like scary basements. So I broke two of my own must-haves when I bought the house because I was feeling like I wouldn't find anything else, and that was not true. And I don't recommend doing that. So know what your true must-haves are. I had other things that I thought were must-haves, like I really wanted a garage. I quickly found out that just wasn't going to happen where I was looking, and I was able to let that go, and that was fine. But know what are the true must-haves that will bother you if you break them. And then figure out where you want to live. If you're needing to look at new areas, go drive by them. Go have lunch or dinner there. Check things out. See how you feel. I can't tell you how many times I have heard about, especially in San Diego, areas that, you know, back when I was in college were like, why would you ever go there? And now they are awesome. You just have to go explore them and see. Or you may have just never even heard of them before, and once you get there, you figure out that there are actually really pretty cool places to live, and maybe you have to drive an extra 5 minutes to the beach, but that's okay. The fourth step is to submit an offer. And you need 3 things in order to submit an offer. The first one, of course, is that pre-approval letter. And that's why we get that ahead of time, because you're going to need it, and it can take a couple days sometimes, depending on how far into the pre-approval process you go, or who the lender is, or if it's a weekend or whatever. So a really good lender can do it in, a day if they absolutely have to, but it's better to get it done ahead of time. That way there's less stress, you're not rushing, and you can focus on the offer. The other thing is proof of funds. The seller wants to know that you actually have the money for the down payment and the closing costs, and that you can actually close. And then the third thing is you actually have to have that money readily available. So it can't be in Bitcoin or overseas or something like that. It has to be money that you can actually have access to quickly, especially since the very first part of the next step is to send money to escrow. And that leads us to step number 5, opening escrow. Once you do that, the escrow company is basically a neutral third party who just makes sure that the contract gets executed the way it was written. So they're the one who's going to ask people for documents and make you sign things and all the back and forth. So the very first thing they're going to do is ask you for your deposit money or your earnest money. And you're going to need to wire that to them within 3 business days of the signing of the contract. So that's why the money has to be readily available. The 6th step is the inspection period. So this starts, it's the first day after you've signed the contract is when it starts, and you will have X many days to do whatever you need to do to make sure this is the house you want to buy. The very first and most obvious one is you will do a general inspection of the home. Do not skip this step unless you have a really good reason. I've only ever had one buyer skip this step, and he had a good reason. So otherwise, don't skip this step. It's super important. You want to know what's going on with the house. That general inspection may also lead you to other inspections that you want to get, such as an HVAC inspection or a plumbing inspection. Once you know what's going on with those, then you can actually come up with a request for repairs to the seller to say, hey, these are the big scary things that are going on. I'd either like money towards them or I'd like you to fix them. We'll go into more detail on that on a different video. The other thing I recommend is just to check the neighborhood. Go to the neighborhood at different times of the day and night. Check traffic patterns, check your commute. Go to the grocery store and see if you like it. Make sure that there's a Trader Joe's nearby if that's super important to you, or whatever. You can also go and knock on your neighbors' doors to see if they're crazy. Make sure you check the sex offender registry, check crime statistics, Google the street, Google the neighborhood, Google everything. Do whatever you need to do to make sure that you're super comfortable that this is the home you want to buy. You are also going to get a ton of disclosures through escrow that you will need to read. So if you're buying a condo, you will get the HOA docs, which will have all the rules and regulations of the condo community. I highly recommend reading those. And making sure you check for certain things like pet restrictions or anything like that, any use of the balcony that you really want to make sure you can do or whatever. You're going to get disclosures from the seller. They're going to tell you what they know is wrong with the home. You're also going to get a natural hazard disclosure, which tells you all about the area that you're buying in. Are you on a earthquake fault? Is it a high fire zone? Are there toxic waste dumps nearby? There is tons of information in this thing, like more than you will ever want to know. So you're gonna have lots of disclosures. You read through those. If anything scary, like super scary comes up that you're like, or just super disturbing to you that you're like, I just can't buy this house, like my commute doesn't work, like whatever, you can back out during this time period and you take that deposit money with you. Assuming you make it through the inspection period, we make it to the appraisal. So the appraisal is just a third party. The bank hires a third party to say, hey, these guys are agreeing to pay X amount for this house. Do you think that the house is actually worth that? Assuming the appraiser agrees, everything moves forward. If it doesn't, you deal with it. Totally different videos. Got those. You can watch them here. Or, if you can't come to an agreement, you can back out, take your earnest money with you. But hopefully you make it through the appraisal and go on to getting your loan approved, which is the next step. So this is step number 8. We're almost done. This is the time the lender just needs to make sure that you can get the loan. They're gonna check your financial history and your financial position. Like, they're gonna be all in your business. Just be prepared. They're gonna be all up in your business. And it's all there. I remember when I sent in all of my checking account statements and stuff like that. I was like, so wait, they're gonna know if I like went to Victoria's Secret this month? Like, yes, they will know everything. So be prepared for that. Assuming you get your loan approved, you move on to closing. This is when you're gonna sign a bunch of documents from escrow. You're gonna send in your down payment and your closing costs to the escrow company. And once you do that and all the money gets dispersed to everyone and the new title is sent into and acknowledged by the county, you own a house. And then you arrange to get keys with your real estate agent and you move in when you're ready. So that's it. We've got find an agent, get pre-approved, look for a house, write an offer, open escrow, have the inspections, get an appraisal, get a loan approved, and close. I hope this was helpful. Comment below if you have any questions or if you've ever experienced a different order that worked for you. Like I said, this isn't set in stone. This is just what I have seen works best and what I recommend. I recommend this order whether it's your first house or your 15th house that you've purchased. I think doing it in this order is super important to make sure that you're successful and you don't have any hiccups along the way. If you would like more information about the home buying process, you can download my home buyer guide below. Just click on the link and you can get that. It has lots of great information about the process and about the market and how you should be thinking about things currently. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to let me know. If you're looking to buy a house, I would love to be the realtor that you choose.